Yeah.
If you can't develop them, why do you care? Ocho, I've never been mad of being in a situation.
Because if you have Shedeur Sanders on the third string, and this is something that came to my mind, fellas, if you had him as your third string quarterback, why wouldn't he be up for a trade to go to the Cleveland Browns?
Shedeur Sanders was officially named the #2 quarterback for Cleveland in the game against Pittsburgh. The Athletic Jason Lord is reporting that the Browns might be hesitant to release Shedeur because of what happened with their former quarterback Baker Mayfield, who went on to shine after leaving Cleveland.
Listen, the Cleveland Browns thought they had it all figured out. They'd control the narrative, pump up their guy Dillon Gabriel, and everything would go smooth. Just another media day, right? But then their assistant GM opened his mouth, and within hours, the entire NFL couldn't stop talking about what just happened. It was supposed to be routine, cameras rolling, reporters asking softball questions, front office guys praising their rookie quarterback Dillon Gabriel. They kept hammering the same point over and over. Dillon's our QB2. Dillon's ahead in the playbook. Dillon's more consistent. Standard corporate talk, nothing controversial, except anyone paying attention could read between the lines. They weren't just praising Gabriel, they were sending a message about Shedeur Sanders, and that message was loud and clear even if they didn't say his name directly. Then one assistant GM got a little too comfortable. Maybe he forgot the cameras were still rolling. Maybe he thought he was just having a casual conversation. But what he said next ignited a firestorm that nobody in Cleveland was prepared for. He hinted that Shedeur might not be NFL ready, that his confidence came more from the family name than actual performance. That single comment, caught on record, spread faster than anyone could have imagined. Within hours, every major sports outlet had their headline ready. Social media exploded. Twitter went nuclear. Instagram flooded with clips and hot takes. YouTube channels cranked out reaction videos at lightning speed. The Browns PR team scrambled, trying to figure out damage control, while the story spiraled completely out of their hands. Because here's the thing about the internet age. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. Once it's out there, it's everywhere. Now, most rookies in this situation would have stayed quiet. They would have let their agents handle it, put out some bland statement about respecting the process and focusing on improvement. They would have smiled for the cameras and played the good soldier. But Shedeur Sanders isn't most rookies. He doesn't do quiet. He doesn't hide behind PR speak. When the noise got loud, he stepped right into it and fired back with raw, unfiltered truth. No scripted apology, no fake humility, no dancing around the issue. Just Shedeur being Shedeur, calm, sharp, and completely fearless. He looked directly at the cameras and said what everyone needed to hear. He talked about putting in the work, about believing he belongs, about knowing his worth. Simple words, but they hit like a freight train, because there was no desperation in his voice, no anger, no defensiveness, just absolute certainty. And that certainty made people uncomfortable because the NFL isn't used to rookies who refuse to play by the unwritten rules.
Now, we've done plenty of shows talking about Mary Kay Cabot on the things that she has said about Shedeur Sanders here recently, because this all started taking place after the Cleveland Browns traded away Joe Flacco. And what happened was Mary Kay Cabot started writing stuff and tweeting stuff about Shedeur Sanders, the elite arm talent, the accuracy, the pinpoint placement of his passes, giving wide receivers and tight ends and running backs chances to catch the ball.
The moment those words left his mouth, everything shifted. The locker room dynamics changed. Fans split right down the middle, some defending him, others questioning whether he had the right to speak that way. And the league itself started asking a question it wasn't prepared to answer. Is the NFL actually ready for a quarterback who refuses to shrink himself to fit their mold? Because what Shedeur said didn't just defend his reputation, it challenged the entire power structure of professional football. Think about how this whole thing started. It began like any other press day in Cleveland. Microphones lined up perfectly, cameras positioned just right, front office executives ready to deliver their carefully crafted message about the team's direction. But underneath all those polished smiles and rehearsed talking points, something felt off. The energy was weird. The emphasis was deliberate. Too deliberate. Obviously, I think overall as a player, I feel like I put in the work. I feel like everything I do, I try to do it to my best. And that's all I ask for. I feel like everybody feels like they should be on the team. team. If you ask anybody on the team whether they feel like they belong in their own eyes. I feel like I do, but I'm my own player. I think about myself in a high regard, of course. The Browns weren't discussing Shedeur directly, but they didn't have to. They kept circling back to Dillon Gabriel. Assistant coaches dropped the same talking points. Gabriel's earned the QB2 spot. Gabriel's further along with the playbook. Gabriel's more consistent in practice. On the surface, it sounded innocent enough. Just standard football evaluation. But anyone who understands how this league operates could feel what was really happening. There was a subtle message buried in those quotes, and it wasn't hard to decode. Shedeur's not our guy. That one assistant GM may be feeling too comfortable in front of the reporters. Maybe forgetting how quickly things spread in this media environment let the mask slip completely. He went from subtle hints to outright questioning whether Shedeur was actually ready for this level. He suggested that Shedeur's confidence might be more about his last name than his actual abilities. That comment, that single offhand remark caught on camera, was all it took. By the next morning, every sports website had locked in their headline. Browns insider questions Shedeur Sanders' readiness. The story dominated talk radio. It was the top discussion on every major podcast. Sports shows dedicated entire segments to breaking down what was said and what it meant. That was the spark, and once it caught fire, there was no stopping it. I feel like it's a slap in the face to Cleveland Browns fans and to the Sanders family, because for the simple fact, Shedeur was not given the same opportunity as Dillon Gabriel. It was displayed in front of the world when they put out the third string line for him and let Dillon Gabriel run with the twos. I don't give a damn how you spin it or what you say. He should have been given the same opportunity if this was a true competition. Shedeur truly had to earn everything. Inside the Browns facility, panic set in fast. The PR team went into full crisis mode, trying to contain something that was already way beyond containment. Players started whispering about it in the locker room, everyone wondering what the fallout would be. Reporters circled like sharks, smelling blood in the water, waiting for reactions, hoping for drama, and social media did what social media does best. It amplified everything. Clips, memes, hot takes, fan wars, conspiracy theories. The story took on a life of its own. Some fans called it honest scouting, just front office people being truthful about what they saw in practice. Others saw it for exactly what it was, a disrespectful shot at the Sanders name, at everything Shedeur had accomplished, at the work he'd put in. And for Shedeur himself, this wasn't just another headline to scroll past. This was personal. This hit different, because it wasn't the first time someone tried to write his story for him, tried to put him in a box, tried to diminish what he'd achieved. And it definitely wouldn't be the last. He'd been hearing the same noise for years now. Too confident, too flashy, only where he is because of his dad. Every label that people tried to stick on him only made him sharper, more focused, more determined to prove them wrong. So when that Browns assistant ran his mouth, Shedeur didn't just hear criticism. He heard a challenge, a test, a moment that would either silence the doubters forever or ignite something bigger than Cleveland itself. And what came next proved one thing beyond any doubt. You can question his statistics. You can question the system he came from, but you cannot question his fire. Because Shedeur Sanders was about to respond, and he wasn't going to do it with carefully crafted PR statements or defensive explanations. He was going to do it with the kind of authentic, powerful statement that turns rookies into legends. The silence after that assistant GM's comment didn't last long, because when you throw shade at a Sanders, you don't get quiet compliance. You get fireworks. That's Shedeur Sanders, and I'm gonna tell you why I think he's being set up to fail. Here we are on national television, right? There's been 11 practices, if I remember correctly. He's been playing against the third unit. He's fourth on the depth chart, and then suddenly you throw him into the starting lineup and he hasn't had any reps with the first team at all. Think about that. You're just gonna throw him to the wolves like that? If he had first team snaps in practice, it would be different. While Cleveland's PR department was still drafting their corporate non-response, figuring out how to say nothing while sounding like they said something, Shedeur had already taken complete control of the narrative. He stepped in front of the cameras, cool as ever. No visible stress, no nervous energy, no agent whispering talking points in his ear. He just spoke from the chest, straight up, no filter. There was no panic in his demeanor, no overthinking, just the kind of composure that cuts through noise like a laser through fog. He said it plain and simple. I feel like I've put in the work. I feel like I belong here. I know my worth. I know what I bring. That's it. No dramatic speech, no theatrical performance, just truth. But here's the thing about truth in today's NFL. When it's delivered with that kind of confidence, it hits harder than any touchdown celebration ever could. You could practically hear the air leave the Browns facility, executives choking on their morning coffee, media handlers diving for their phones to start damage control, reporters freezing mid-question because they hadn't expected this level of directness. Because Shedeur didn't just defend himself against the criticism, he completely flipped the conversation. He took what was supposed to be a story about him needing to prove himself and turned it into a story about an organization that might not be ready for him. That's the power of real confidence, not the fake bravado that crumbles under pressure, not the manufactured swagger that disappears when things get tough. Real confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you've put in. Most rookies would have folded under that kind of scrutiny. They would have backed down, retreated to safe corporate language, hit the usual PR autopilot. I'm just focused on learning from the veterans. I trust the process. Whatever the coaches decide is fine with me. But Shedeur wasn't playing that game. He didn't need to scream to make his point. He didn't need to get emotional or defensive. He let his calm do the talking, and that calm wasn't arrogance. It was clarity. He wasn't mad that someone doubted him. He was almost annoyed that people still didn't understand who they were dealing with. Like he'd already proven this 100 times, and he was tired of having to prove it again. It sounds like the Cleveland Browns are going to all but imprison Shedeur Sanders in the football sense. A very talented rookie quarterback who obviously needs reps, needs an opportunity, and who now, barring some miraculous luck, will not get the opportunity to play in a single real game. I'm sure many around the NFL are celebrating as we speak. They're chuckling about this. Many in the NFL wanted to teach Shedeur and his daddy a lesson. Because here's the thing that people need to understand. Shedeur's confidence isn't manufactured for social media. It's not fake swagger built on nothing. It's not the product of hype machines and marketing campaigns. It's built, it's earned, it's forged from every single rep, every late night grinding through film study, every hit he took and got back up from, every person who told him he wasn't good enough and watched him prove them wrong. He's been underestimated since high school. People said he only got scholarship offers because of his dad. When he went to Jackson State, they said the competition wasn't real. When he transferred to Colorado, they said he couldn't handle Power 5 football. And yet, every single time the lights came on, every single time the stage got bigger, he delivered. So when that Browns assistant questioned his readiness, Shedeur didn't flinch. He didn't give them the outrage they might have been expecting. He gave them authenticity. And that right there is why the league couldn't stop talking about this story, because Shedeur's words weren't a meltdown. They weren't a rookie losing his cool under pressure. They were a mirror that forced the NFL to look at itself and ask an uncomfortable question. Why does confidence only seem to bother us when it comes from someone who doesn't fit the traditional mold? Why are we comfortable with certain personalities but threatened by others? In one short statement, Shedeur exposed more than just disrespect from one assistant GM. He exposed a system that's built to control personalities like his, a system that claims to want authenticity but really wants compliance. He showed that the modern quarterback doesn't need to play humble just to be respected. He doesn't need to shrink himself to make other people comfortable. The message was crystal clear. He's not waiting around for validation from people who already made up their minds. He's not chasing approval from a system that was never designed for someone like him. He's setting his own standard, and with that, the story stopped being about one careless comment from one assistant GM. It became something much bigger, because now the NFL wasn't just watching Shedeur Sanders with casual interest. It was reacting to him, and reactions reveal truth. They show you what people really think, what they really fear, what they really want to control. Before we dive deeper into Cleveland's organizational chaos, you have to understand why Shedeur Sanders' name alone creates seismic shifts in the NFL conversation. Most players make headlines for what they do on the field. Game-winning drives, record-breaking performances, playoff heroics. Shedeur makes headlines just by showing up, just by existing in the space. He's not just talented in the conventional sense. He's magnetic in a way that transcends normal football talent. Every throw looks like it was calculated by advanced AI. Precise, calm, perfect under pressure. He doesn't need unnecessary flash because his control is the flash. The way he reads defenses, the way he manipulates safeties with his eyes, the way he delivers the ball exactly where it needs to be, even when everything around him is collapsing. That's what makes him special. But what truly separates Shedeur from other talented quarterbacks is what happens off the field. He's already a brand, not becoming a brand, not building a brand, already is one. Endorsement deals, fashion sense, social media following, cultural influence. All of this before taking a single official NFL snap. He doesn't just play football, he understands the business behind football. In an era where your image equals your leverage, where perception shapes reality, Shedeur holds all the cards. He knows it. And more importantly, everyone else knows it too. And of course, there's the name, Sanders. Growing up under Dayon Primetime, Sanders meant he learned the game in the brightest spotlight imaginable. But here's what people get wrong. He's not trying to copy Prime. He's not doing a tribute act. He's evolving what Prime started. Prime showed you could be great and loud. That personality and performance could coexist. Shedeur's proving you can be authentic and dominant, that you don't have to choose between being yourself and being excellent. So when a Browns assistant GM questioned whether he was ready, it wasn't just disrespect, it was delusion. It was someone fundamentally misunderstanding who they were dealing with, because Shedeur's been ready for this stage his entire life. He's not trying to fit into the NFL system, to mold himself into what they want. The system is already bending around him, whether it wants to or not. If there's one franchise in professional football that knows how to ruin a good thing, it's the Cleveland Browns. This isn't speculation or unfair criticism. It's documented history. For decades, they've turned quarterback chaos into an art form. They've perfected the revolving door of wasted potential. Tim Couch, Brady Quinn, Brandon Weeden, Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield. Every few years, a new savior arrives with hope and promise, and then vanishes into the organizational dysfunction that defines Cleveland football. So when Shedeur Sanders' name got tied to the Browns in any capacity, fans who know the history held their breath. Because the pattern says one thing clearly: Cleveland breaks quarterbacks. It's not just about bad luck or unfortunate circumstances. It's about organizational culture. A system that chews up leadership, punishes confidence, and rewards silence and compliance. And Shedeur, he's the complete opposite of silent. He's the opposite of compliant. So when that assistant GM took his shot at Shedeur, people who understand Brown's history saw it for what it really was. Another chapter in Cleveland's endless curse. Another example of a team that's terrified of strong personalities while pretending it's about scheme fit or organizational philosophy. You could almost feel the deja vu washing over everyone. A gifted quarterback walks in with swagger, with belief, with star power, and Cleveland's system immediately panics. Only this time, they picked the absolute wrong person to underestimate, because Shedeur doesn't crumble under dysfunction. He doesn't wilt when organizations try to dim his light. He feeds off it. Every jab becomes fuel. Every headline becomes motivation. Every rumor becomes proof that he's doing something right. And deep down, even Browns fans know the truth. If this franchise finds a way to push Shedeur out, if they somehow mess this up, they won't just lose another quarterback. They'll lose the future itself. The moment that quote hit the internet, everything exploded in ways the Browns couldn't have predicted. One assistant's supposedly offhand comment turned into a full-blown media war zone. Sports shows replayed the clip on endless loops, dissecting every word, every tone, every implication. Analysts argued for hours about what it meant, what it revealed, what it signaled about Cleveland's plans. And hashtags demanding respect for Shedeur started trending worldwide before the Browns organization even realized what had hit them. Fans split right down the middle in the most predictable way. Half said Shedeur was being blatantly disrespected, that the organization was showing its true colors. The other half claimed he hadn't earned anything yet, that he needed to prove himself before demanding respect. But everyone, regardless of which side they took, agreed on one fundamental thing. You don't poke a Sanders and expect to walk away quietly. You don't throw shade at that family without consequences. The internet became an absolute circus. Clips of Shedeur's previous interviews flooded TikTok, each one getting millions of views. Twitter debates went completely nuclear, with verified accounts and regular fans alike choosing sides. YouTube was suddenly crawling with reaction videos, breakdown analyses, and hot take compilations, all calling out the Browns for what many saw as organizational disrespect. Every major outlet tried to spin the story their own way. Some framed it as locker room tension, others pushed the rookie entitlement angle, some tried the organizational miscommunication narrative. But nobody, no matter how hard they tried, could bury what was really happening. Cleveland had crossed a line. They disrespected someone who had the platform, the confidence, and the backing to make them pay for it. And Shedeur, he didn't just react emotionally to fuel the fire. He controlled it. Every time someone tried to twist his words or misrepresent his position, he came back sharper, calmer, more composed than before. He wasn't reacting emotionally like they wanted. He was managing perception like a 10-year veteran who already understood that the rules of this game were rigged against people like him. The more the media talked, the bigger Shedeur got, because the truth that nobody wants to say out loud is this: controversy doesn't destroy stars, it creates them. The biggest names in sports history all had moments like this, moments where they were tested, challenged, disrespected, and the ones who rose to legendary status were the ones who didn't back down. In one chaotic week, Shedeur Sanders went from interesting rookie prospect to unavoidable national headline. The Browns had absolutely no idea what kind of storm they'd unleash. Here's where the story took its most interesting turn, because the question stopped being about football ability and started being about character, about personality, about who gets to be confident in the NFL. Sports talk shows weren't debating his arm strength anymore, weren't analyzing his footwork or decision making. They were debating whether his personality fit what the league wanted. Was Shedeur confident, or was he cocky? Was he self-assured, or was he arrogant? The answer, as it turns out, depends entirely on who you ask. When a quiet, traditional quarterback speaks his mind occasionally, they call it leadership. They praise his ability to command the room. When Shedeur does the exact same thing, it's labeled a distraction. That's the NFL's double standard, and it always has been. They say they want authenticity. They claim they're tired of robotic interviews and scripted responses. But what they really want is obedience. They want players who smile for the cameras, nod through criticism, and deliver the same predictable lines over and over. But Shedeur doesn't play that game. He never has, and he never will. He doesn't bow to pressure from people who don't understand him. He redefines what pressure even means. He knows his worth in a league that tries to tell young players they haven't earned the right to know their worth yet. And that scares people whose entire power structure depends on control. Because confidence like Shedeur's isn't arrogance, no matter how hard people try to frame it that way. Arrogance is empty. Arrogance is loud with nothing behind it. What Shedeur has is earned through years of grinding, studying, performing under the heaviest spotlight imaginable. He's been doubted at every level. He's faced criticism that would have broken lesser players. And now that he's mastered the mental game, now that he's proven he can handle anything thrown at him, the system doesn't know how to respond. So they label it, they twist it, they turn strength into attitude because they can't control it. They try to make confidence seem like a character flaw because that's easier than admitting they're uncomfortable with someone who refuses to shrink. But here's the truth that cuts through all the noise. Arrogance fades when it's fake. It crumbles under real pressure. Confidence lasts when it's real, when it's built on actual achievement and real work. And Shedeur Sanders, whatever else anyone wants to say about him, is as real as it gets. Shedeur Sanders isn't just an athlete who plays football. He's an enterprise. He's a business. Every move he makes feels intentional and strategic. Every quote he gives, every outfit he wears, every post he makes on social media. It's all part of a larger strategy that most rookies don't even think about until years into their careers. While other talented prospects are just hoping to get endorsement deals eventually, Shedeur attracts them naturally. Nike, Beats, Gatorade. Major brands don't just see a player with potential. They see profit wrapped in confidence. They see someone who understands marketing and leverage. He's mastered what the old school NFL still fears and doesn't fully understand. Authenticity combined with massive influence. Every time he speaks publicly, the internet explodes with reactions and his value climbs higher. That's not luck. That's not just because of his last name. That's leverage that he's built himself. Shedeur knows that in today's league, your image is your currency. Your brand is your power. And right now, he's cashing in with every word he says, every move he makes. Then came what many observers called the setup. And make no mistake about it, that's exactly what it was. Shedeur wasn't given fair opportunities in practice. He wasn't running plays with the first team offense. He was consistently placed with the backups, with the third stringers, and then evaluated as if he had the same advantages as Dillon Gabriel. It's the oldest trick in coaching. Set the stage for someone to fail, then call it objective evaluation. Analysts who've been around football for decades saw it immediately. One prominent commentator said, "You don't test real talent talent this way. You bury it. You create conditions where even great players look average, then point to the results as proof. Still, Shedeur never publicly complained about the situation. He didn't storm off the field. He didn't post cryptic messages on social media hinting at frustration. He just showed up every single day, took whatever reps they gave him, and owned every snap he got. And that's what made it worse for Cleveland's front office. Because even when the odds were deliberately stacked against him, Shedeur stayed calm, stayed professional, stayed controlled. And controlled is dangerous. The message he sent without saying it directly was clear. You can try to box me out. You can try to create unfair circumstances, but you'll never box me in. You'll never break what I've built. Every jab from critics, every negative headline, every person who doubts him, Shedeur takes it all and converts it into fuel. He doesn't run from criticism the way some players do. He studies it, he listens to it, rewinds it in his mind, examines it from every angle, and then uses it as motivation. That's the part casual observers miss. He's not angry at the hate, he's energized by it. Because for Shedeur, disrespect isn't an insult. It's free pre-workout. It's extra motivation he didn't even have to go looking for. While other players scroll through social media mentions getting emotional, Shedeur is in the film room. He's breaking down every play, every read, every tiny mistake until it's perfect. That's what separates real confidence from empty ego, work ethic, the willingness to put in the hours that nobody sees, to perfect the details that don't show up in highlight reels. And behind that relentless drive stands a father who taught him exactly how to handle fire without getting burned. Dion didn't raise just a quarterback. He raised someone who could handle the spotlight that comes with the Sanders name. He raised a mirror that reflects every ounce of pressure back at the system that creates it. So when Cleveland tried to test Shedeur, when they tried to see if they could shake his confidence or expose weaknesses, they didn't break him, they built him. They gave him another story to tell, another chapter in the legend. Because Shedeur Sanders doesn't fight storms, he becomes them. The Cleveland Browns tried to test Shedeur Sanders. They thought they could shake his foundation, expose some hidden weakness, prove that the confidence was all show. Instead, they gave him the biggest platform possible. They handed him a microphone and an audience that stretched across the entire sports world. They thought they could diminish him, but all they did was prove how truly unshakable he really is. He's not just preparing for the NFL like other rookies, trying to absorb playbooks and earn respect. He's actively redefining what an NFL quarterback can be in the modern era. He's showing that a quarterback can be completely honest, outspoken, unapologetically himself, and still command a locker room, still lead, still win. He's proving that you don't have to choose between authenticity and excellence, between personality and performance. Because the real question here was never whether Shedeur Sanders is ready for the NFL. That question was answered long ago through his performance, his preparation, his ability to handle pressure that would crush most people. The real question, the one that makes organizations like Cleveland uncomfortable, is this. Is the NFL ready for Shedeur Sanders? Is it ready for someone who won't be controlled, won't be dimmed, won't play the game by rules designed to keep players in their place? And if this entire story proved anything beyond doubt, it's that Shedeur doesn't follow eras. He doesn't wait for permission to be great. He starts eras. He creates movements. And whether the NFL likes it or not, whether organizations like the Browns are comfortable with it or not, Shedeur Sanders is here, and he's not going anywhere.